Okay. It's not us. It's not you. It's us. It's not us. It's you. And now we are live. So listen. Welcome to episode 27 of the Moor Insights and Strategy Data Center Podcast. I'm talking very slowly because I'm not sure why. I think I'm trying to collect my thoughts. Anyway, I'm Matt Kimball, and I am joined by the less than estimable Will Townsend, security and networking guru, and Paul Smith Goodson, the king of quantum, the king of AI, and the king of anything that's beyond the realm of possible. So, first Friday in August, it's great to be with you guys.
Yeah, awesome.
I want to let everybody know that we had sent out a memo. I mentioned this pre-show. We're trying to revive a boy band spirit to our podcast. We're actually going to do a little harmonizing at the end of this, but Will didn't get it and didn't wear his uniform, so he blew it. But that's okay. We're here to talk about a bunch of stuff, data center related, lots of fun stuff. Here's a caution to you. If you hear anything we say and you think it's of interest, double check it and don't use it as a basis for making any investments. Because if you do that, you should not have the right to invest. We do this for entertainment purposes, informational, but not for investment purposes. So please don't do that. And before we get going, please, click the like button and subscribe to us and keep the love going. So guys, crazy week earnings wise, crazy week tech wise. AI is still front and center of everybody's kind of thinking, and it's really kind of informed a lot of earnings this week. But we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about that weird thing we heard about a couple weeks back on CrowdStrike that we touched on our last podcast. Talk about AI a little bit. Some AMD earnings, HPE, a normal group, along with Juniper. Paul, say it.
Quantinuum.
Thank you.
And is that a Marvel? Is that a Marvel movie, like with Ant-Man and whatever?
Paul is Tony Stark, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So. But like I said, let's have a great conversation. There was a lot of news to cover. If we stray a little bit, that's okay. But let's have a fun conversation. And we're actually going to start it off with the king of networking and security, Mr. Will Townsend. So Will, jump in. What's this CrowdStrike thing we keep hearing about? It's yeah.
Yeah, well, we hit this very quickly, I think, on the front end of our podcast 2 weeks ago. I mean, literally 2 weeks ago, the news was breaking. And so I took the weekend and the following week to sort of, process all of that information. And then I posted a Forbes article with, my insights and thoughts and that sort of thing. So I thought it'd be appropriate to come back 2 weeks later and do sort of a mini post-mortem. One of the things that I pointed out in that Forbes article was the potential reputation damage long-term to the companies that basically deployed CrowdStrike with the integration with Microsoft Windows that created the blue screen of death. And now it's coming to light that it was not just a bad day. I mean, the impact is huge. And I sort of postulated that it could be potentially in the billions of dollars. So news broke recently around Delta Airlines. They were dramatically impacted. Folks were stranded at their hub in Atlanta for almost a week at some point. They experienced, major operational challenges throughout their entire fleet. And the CEO is estimated that the cost to Delta is over $500 million.
Yep.
And that is just, mind blowing, because when you think about that was just Delta and one airliner. I mean, American Airlines was also affected, as well as other airlines. There, the London Stock Exchange, hospitals, Starbucks. I mean, online, and brick and mortar. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But, from my perspective, it's one thing that, to kind of take it on the chin with a $500 million operational cost for Delta, but start thinking about the reputation damage to these companies. And I've been on social media and I've been, sort of scanning a lot of this activity. I mean, people are mad at Delta. They're blaming Delta. They're mad because they couldn't get a unicorn frappe latte at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Stock exchanges couldn't transact. So, I believe that, the reputation damage is going to be tremendous. That's going to equate to lost future revenue and a lot of churn among companies that have spent, millions of dollars to bring customers, into their portfolio. So, yeah, so it's interesting. I did not watch the hearings when the CrowdStrike CEO was invited to DC to present to Congress. I don't know, Matt or Paul, did you catch any of that?
I avoid when politicians call in, folks. I just avoid it because to me it becomes more about a grandstanding exercise than anything else. Show off for my constituents. I don't know, Paul. Did you happen to catch any of it?
No, I didn't. No, I'm like there.
What do you think, Matt? I mean, because this is pretty far-reaching. Not only into cybersecurity, but it's a DevOps issue, right? And
it's an IT ops issue. It's an everything issue. This is the thing that I still 2 weeks later or so I still don't fully get. And stuff like this happens, right? It is the proverbial guy in the data center tripping over the cord, right, and unplugging the rack. We joked about this stuff in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 1990s. Sorry, I should clarify that.
Not the 1890s.
Yeah, and we've been joking about it ever since, right? But it is the proverbial. It happens. What I think is shocking to me is I still don't have a good sense of how you resolve for this. Not you, but how these organizations resolve for this moving forward. Is it unfair to blame Delta? Yeah, my personal take on this. My kid was flying home from Boston during this on American, and he got delayed by 2 days, right? And he's mad at American. Is it American's fault? No, but what are you doing, and what are you going to do about it moving forward? Azure, what are you going to do? Microsoft. I know Microsoft research team was hard at it, 24 hours later, trying to figure out how they resolve for this. There's so many still kind of unanswered questions that I think deliver the confidence for consumers that this is going to be kind of mitigated moving forward through some kind of strategy that is what hurts the reputation more than anything else. Because I think most folks are willing to say, stuff happens, right?
Right.
It's what are you doing to make sure stuff doesn't happen the next time, right? Exactly. That is what hurts the reputation. And I think Paul's got
It's amazing to me. It's something so simple can cause such a huge destruction in wealth and trust and
Well, the reality is that, the integrations will continue, and there's value in doing that. There's value in integrating, an EDR solution, maybe not at the pipeline or kernel level, like what happened here, but it was also the delivery mechanism. It was a boot start driver, and you can't reset that remotely. You physically have to be in front of a machine to do it. Yeah. And stories were told that it took, in some instances, 12 to 15 reboots. So think about an airport and think about the level of IT acumen that a gate agent has, right? Mm-hmm. That's what really kind of, I think, accelerated, the overall impact to this with Delta. But yeah, I mean, and so, I do believe CrowdStrike can, recover from this. But they're going to have to be very transparent about what they're doing to shore up their DevOps processes, because integration will continue. What's interesting, Google was going to acquire Wiz, a cloud security provider. I'm not sure if I've spoken about this on a prior podcast with you guys, but they canned it at the last minute, and it was huge. It was like $24 billion. And if you think about it, Google would have integrated Wiz into its cloud infrastructure, right, for security. And so maybe, and the timing was right around CrowdStrike. Now, it may have just been a coincidence, but that might have been some hesitation around, well, can we do an IPO and drive more value out of this, and not take it on, the chin with given what's happened. So integration will continue, but I think what this does is it's a learning moment. I mean, not only for the cybersecurity industry, but for the IT industry as a whole, to be a lot more transparent and be a lot crisper with CI/CD pipelines and DevOps and that sort of thing. So that's my take on it.
I am curious about the recoverability of CrowdStrike, and this is a different situation than SolarWinds, but I think about the SolarWinds incident a few years back, and I know where their building is. I know they're still there, but man, they
haven't recovered. I mean, it was sort of like dropping the nuke, right? And they're not the same company. No. And but I think CrowdStrike, I think they're a different company. I think they've proven that their technology is solid when you look at their overall performance, but it's going to be a long journey for them regardless.
It's going to be fun to talk about them in a couple quarters to see where they are.
For sure.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. And of course, I like your kind of straight to the point headline, but where would we be without some kind of creativity in the group, right? This boy band that we're talking about. So let's jump to AI immunity warriors. When I think of warriors, I think of that movie from the 70s, but I think this is a different discussion we're having, huh, Paul?
Yeah, it is. To me, this is one of the more amazing things that AI can do in terms of improving humanity and helping eventually probably untold millions of people. But this involves a type of cancer called glioblastoma, and it's one of the most common and deadliest cancers in adults. If you're diagnosed with glioblastoma, and 90% of people are going to be dead in 5 years.
Oh.
And they're using AI to transform these glioblastoma cells into dendritic cells, which are part of the immune system, but they're actually reprogramming the it's difficult to treat this type of cancer because these brain tumors hide behind the blood-brain barrier, and it's hard for immune cells to get access to it. So this is kind of a new technique. They're using AI basically to explore gene control and reprogram these glioblastoma cells into actually immune cells, the dendritic cells. And they're doing this in mice right now. And the way it's done, I mean, think about actually to reprogram a living cell into another functional type of cell. I think that's pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But AI is it's pretty good when it comes to data analysis and pattern recognition, and then it can handle huge amounts of biological data to identify patterns and factors involving in cellular reprogramming. So it's also got, it's really good for predictive modeling. And the impact on it, if you look at down the road, like I said, they're doing this to mice right now. But, look at this could be applied to cancer immunotherapy. Transform cancer cells into immune activating cells. These dendritic cells are, what they do is they get particles and stuff from infections and stuff, and they take it over to the T cells, and basically a message saying, "Hey, T cells, we've got a problem here," and then the T cells rush in to to try and cure whatever the infection is. So,
Paul, is this being done by a university or a lab?
Yeah, University of Southern California.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some downsides too. I mean, it's a very complex process, as you can imagine, and there's also a possibility of unintended consequences of you don't want to get in there and try and convert healthy brain cells.
Sure.
Could end up with somebody with a 10 IQ or something. But it's one of the more amazing things. We got huge models and we're getting tiny models and we're applying all this to business, but this is something that can be applied to humanity and benefit the world. So
Yeah.
It seems to me there's such a broad application because to what you were saying, I mean, you can take that, a very specific type of cancer, but you can see cancer more broadly, right? And a lot of kind of ailments and chronic conditions that folks go through, and kind of the power of AI to drive, if not cure, at least better treatment plans to mitigate, right? I mean,
wouldn't that be amazing if AI was finally the factor that helped us cure cancer?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I remember, do you guys remember the $6 Million Man and the Bigfoot episodes towards the end, and the magic blue vial that was the cure for cancer? I mean, AI could be that magic blue vial. I just dated my age big time. In y'all's as well.
You missed the reference to Lindsay Wagner, the bionic
the bionic woman. Yeah.
But you did date yourself. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't heard more about this because it's such a amazing thing that they've done and a great thing they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, to what you're saying, for all of the talk of AI and Gen AI, and we talk about, kind of making businesses run more, efficiently and responding to chats, more accurately. But like really important stuff, like, curing cancer and finding, treatments for some of these more challenging problems in the world. I wish we would spend more time talking about that. To me, that's a much more interesting use case and use of AI. But
I agree.
Yeah. But hey, I'm just one person, and we're just one team. We're just one boy band. By the way, we have to think.
I just want to give this a little bit of airtime and make people aware.
What was that, Paul?
I said I just want to give this a little bit of airtime and make people aware of other things.
No, that's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Something we should talk about more in depth as well, and more frequently. So on that news, let's go to, speaking of business, let's go to kind of some interesting business news. So unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you probably saw the earnings announcement from AMD on Tuesday. Strong across the board, but holy heck, their data center business is killing it. Up 100. I'm going to do this all from memory. I have no notes. I will show you, I promise. No notes. Up 115% year over year. Triple-digit growth in data center revenue to $2.8 billion. Operating margins super healthy. Operating income super healthy. Driven largely by the MI300. Crosses $1 billion in revenue, quarterly revenue for the first time ever. It caused AMD to up their guidance on the MI300, the MI300 series, from $4 billion in 24 to $4.5 billion in 24. So upped it by $500 million. It's having a pull-through effect on EPYC that saw a third of its new revenue bookings tied to net new customers, over 900 cloud instances based on EPYC now. Azure is using, and Microsoft is using the MI300 for its GPT Turbo sessions, or to help with that, and a lot of its Copilot work. This company is absolutely killing it in the data center. And we contrast that with Intel, that had a super difficult quarter. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that to kind of highlight Intel, but to more in light of what was soft in kind of one side of the industry, this company's killing it, and it really is, I believe, all tied to the MI300. The EPYC is a great CPU. I say that as somebody who worked on that team for a long time. But what's going on is the MI300 is selling faster than they can make it. And every one of those MI300 solutions going out is accompanied by an EPYC CPU, right? As the controller or as the head node, whatever you want to call that box. And what's happening and what's going to happen, you're not realizing it yet, but you're going to see it kind of quarters down the line, is this move to EPYC as the CPU platform because of the MI300, because the last thing enterprise IT wants is multiple CPU vendors populating their data center. So what they do is they say our most high performing needs are being served by Xeon or EPYC, and everything that cascades off that follows in line. MI300 has the EPYC as its pair. Therefore, you're eventually going to see all that general purpose compute become an EPYC environment. So this is quarters out. This is years out that you're going to see this proliferation of EPYC continue across enterprise IT. And it's going to be very difficult for the competition to regain its footing and establish itself. I think the floodgates have opened at this point.
Hey, Matt, I got a question for you. What's the benefit of being consistent with a particular vendor like AMD for EPYC and MI300? Do you get some sort of synergistic effect when it's an all AMD thing? Is it easier to manage? Because I wouldn't think that consistent silicon would necessarily drive any of that, but you're the compute expert, so.
Yeah. So when talking about AMD versus Intel or AMD versus ARM, it may as well be AMD versus ARM. There's as an IT organization across my data center, there are images I create that I throw down onto servers. There are virtual environments I create. I need to manage those environments. I need to deploy. I need to manage for my more high performing workloads. There is very low level work I do to take advantage of architectural things within EPYC versus Xeon or Xeon versus EPYC. Yeah. And those are tweaks I make, right? When I introduce a second supplier for my silicon, now I have to manage two environments. And it's not just manage from I have to create two separate images. Sometimes manage at the very low levels. Like, if a VM farm dies over here, how do I live migrate that very quickly to, if I don't have the same silicon in house, how do I live migrate that? Okay. Not always possible. There are all of these challenges that happen. That's part one. Part two, it's a pricing thing, right? If I have a single supplier, right, I can gain kind of economies of scale, if you will, by buying in volume. And as for the affinity, if you will, for AMD and MI300 versus AMD, or EPYC and MI300 versus EPYC and Blackwell, or Blackwell and Xeon, there's always a goodness that takes place between creating, and whether it's just through inferencing and some of the kind of special additions I add or goodness I add from a performance perspective. There's always a synergy I, as a silicon provider, try to create between my offerings that you're not going to achieve in others. That's why, that's why NVIDIA built Grace, right? So they could have a Grace Blackwell platform, a CPU and a GPU platform that performs better than Intel and Blackwell or AMD and Blackwell. So,
cool. Yeah. Thanks for answering my question.
Oh, no.
Very thorough, my friend.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Just a period on this. I looked at the Dow is down about 800 and NASDAQ is down about 400, and AMD is up over 30.
Yeah. Go figure, right? Yeah. It's incredible what they're doing. I like I said, I love EPYC. I mean, I'm one of the OGs on EPYC, right? So I'm always a fan of EPYC, and I'm not biased, but I do. They've done a great job with it. But I think there's a stroke of brilliance and maybe a little bit of luck with the MI300 and the timing of Gen AI, right? Because there's so much pull through that comes from that they're going to be able to realize. So, good on AMD. And, luck is a product of hard work and innovation. So,
but I tell you what, I mean, it took Lisa Su really to right the ship, because it's been just sort of a roller coaster over the years with prior leadership, right? So you've got to give Lisa some credit for all of this.
You have to get her and Mark Papermaster, and don't forget Jim Keller as an architect back in the day, and Forrest Norrod, who is amazing. They all get credit, and Lisa's the front of the ship. I wouldn't really call it a roller coaster, though, Will, because that implies that in the past, 5 years, there were some uptimes and downtimes. We were in a submarine and we surfaced with Epic. That's a better.
Let's be honest, right?
Anyway, sorry for my unshaven face. Anyway, fun discussion. Going to be fun to watch, and we'll cover some more here in a couple of segments. But let's move on to our next topic, and that is going back to you, right, Will, with HPE Juniper goodness.
Yeah, so I want to kind of provide an update to our viewers on the transaction between HPE and Juniper Network. So this shocked quite a few folks in the industry when the announcement was made that HPE was intending to acquire Juniper for $14 billion. There was a lot of scrutiny around overlap and product roadmap and that sort of thing. Could it be anti-competitive? Could it be just a consolidation play? And would regulators approve the deal? Well, just recently, the European Union unconditionally approved HPE's acquisition of Juniper, and that's pretty strong. I mean, when you look at the European Union and all of the concerns and all the the more highly regulated nature of Europe as well. To me, that's a great sign that this deal looks pretty promising to get approved, both in the United States and the rest of the world. And when the news broke, Patrick Moorhead, our founder, and I, we were one of the only analysts that got to spend time with Antonio and with Rami, the CEO of Juniper, to get some color and get some additional detail around why they felt this transaction was going to be accretive and valuable. Certainly, it gives gives HPE a stronger AI position. But when you start looking at where both companies play, there were gaps, right? So when you looked at Aruba, fairly, there was a gap in the data center. Juniper very strong in that regard. And then when you put the two companies together, they really can provide a solution that extends from the traditional data center, from cloud to network edge, and do so with a very strong AI platform and MI&S systems that Juniper acquired over 4 years ago. The other thing that's really interesting, and I wrote about this in the research note when the news broke several months ago, is that both Antonio and Rami state that yes, there's some duplication and overlap from a portfolio perspective that'll be rationalized, but from a customer standpoint, there's very little overlap. So, from my perspective, this deal looks like it's going to get approved. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put that statement out there. I do believe this deal will get approved. Officials have been stating that it's likely by the end of the calendar year, 1st of 2025. And I think, the companies are probably already in the clean room, figuring out a lot of this product rationalization, that sort of thing, so they can hit the ground running on day one. But Matt, what do you think?
I'm with you. I think it's going to happen. I'm more curious. I have a question for you, and that is, does this, say HPE is a really interesting and fun company, and they do so many great things. Obviously this gives them greater strength in the networking space. Yeah. So they become a networking company. I'm kind of curious as to what your take is on, like, when you look at kind of like their moves in the cloud and everything, is this complementary of that, or is the cloud stuff more complementary of what they're doing with Juniper? You know,
No, I think, obviously Juniper brings some complement to sort of the cloud stuff. They've done a lot in telco. But when you look at the top line revenue, I mean, this creates a networking business with top line revenue of close to 10 billion.
Yeah.
And it also brings together engineering resources from both organizations. So, and Antonio was very frank with Pat and I in saying that, he's an engineer, obviously, but that what they're really excited about is the engineering prowess that comes together to allow them to compete with the 800-pound gorilla in the market from a networking perspective, which is Cisco. Yeah. So I think this is good. I think this is going to drive innovation. Competition, in my mind, always breeds innovation.
Sure.
So I think it's a good thing for the industry, but it's going to be fun to watch as this thing winds out.
It is. It's going to be a them plus Aruba. It's
pretty powerful.
What do you think about the overlap between Aruba and some of Juniper products like wireless LAN and campus switching and things like that?
Yeah, I think there's some switching. There's some SD-WAN, there's some SASE there. But I think Juniper also helps improve what HPE is doing from a renewed focus on private 5G with its Athonet acquisition and its most recent private 5G end-to-end solution offering. I mean, there's going to be some rationalization. I think Aruba Central is a great management console, and if I were to guess, I think that stays. I think obviously the Mist intellectual property that stays, that gets integrated. And it's sort of going to be a best of breed approach. I mean, I remember I was at Compaq when we were acquired by Hewlett Packard, and that's exactly the strategy that was employed back in, I think it was 2001, if I remember. They called it adopt and go, and they basically, from both companies, they took sort of discrete chunks of the business that were best in class, and then they integrated those. That's not a trivial undertaking by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. But I believe that's what's gonna kind of shake out here.
Well, you've got two really good. I mean, Aruba and Juniper. You've got two really great, not just from technology, but from an innovation perspective.
Sure.
We use that term a lot, and sometimes it can get kind of, lose its meaning. But you've got some really creative and innovative minds in both of those companies. It's going to be really fun, and they have kind of two different kind of core strengths. It's going to be fun. You're saying put those two together and see what comes out the other side. It's going to be fun to watch.
It is.
And, yeah.
So I'm a little worried about that too, huh?
What's that?
I said Cisco might be worried about the merger too.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely gonna challenge Cisco. And the other aspect that I think the combination of those two companies bring to bear is, custom silicon capabilities. Probably not to the extent that, relative to Cisco with Silicon One and its investment there, but Juniper brings some custom silicon. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out with merchant versus custom and where they go with that too. So,
sure. Makes sense. Hey, so moving on, we got another fun topic, and I'm going to let Paul just hit this because I don't know why I cannot say, a new Quantum Toolbox. That's easy. I saw two U's in there last time. I think it has something to do with my glasses. But Paul, what is a new Quantum Toolbox? Can you enlighten us, please?
Yeah, Quantinuum is a pretty solid quantum computing company. They use trapped ion as technology, and they've got very high fidelity ratings, relatively high. I mean, not eventually high, but their fidelity on their qubits and 2 qubit gates are fairly high, and they're well respected. There's a lot of people that are using Quantinuum H2 for experiments and research. So. They've announced a new product. It's called Nexus, and it's more of a kind of like a smart toolbox for quantum computers. It's makes things a lot easier for researchers and scientists and kind of novices that, don't work with quantum all the time. It helps them set up their experiments and install, whatever necessary software is. It helps manage their work. They can use Nexus to actually run the experiments on different quantum computers. So you got the ability to make comparisons like that, and it tracks everything. So whatever they're working on that project, Nexus basically kind of takes a snapshot of the experiment and remembers all the settings and the tools and the results and that type of thing. So it's going to help scientists collaborate. Really good for teamwork, and I think it's a good product. So that's basically it.
When you say that, Paul, it kind of it makes me raises a question in my head, and that is, are we at the point with quantum where, or are we still in the quantum kind of journey, if you will, where everybody has their own kind of proprietary technology and is doing their own thing, and what IBM is doing does not integrate with other companies and so on and so forth? Or is it pretty wide open and pretty kind of collaborative? Or is it a mix of...
Every company's got their own modality. They've got IBM has got superconducting qubits, IonQ, and Quantinuum have got trapped ions. Atom computing uses neutral atoms, and there's some really weird things they're doing with other modalities. But basically, though, when you get to programming computers, basically at a high level, it's the same basically for a qubit's a qubit, a gate's a gate, that type of thing. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're still. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, this should give them additional business. It's going to make it a lot easier for people who aren't hardcore quantum programmers to go in and build experiments and work with the computers.
So when you say people who aren't hardcore quantum programmers, you mean everybody?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. I make sure I understood that. I don't mean that flippantly. I just mean it's just so far advanced, and it's another level of intelligence I will never have in my life, I'm sure.
No.
Yeah, and that's okay. Hey, so going on to a final topic. So I tried to pull out my Paul creativity, and I labeled this one the secret weapon of the data center.
Nice.
Thank you.
I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. See, like I said, it's fashion advice. Your intellect. I'm trying to model myself after you. But I did a research note earlier this week or late last week, and it kind of it started out talking about what NVIDIA has done with Blackwell and with Grace Blackwell. And I'm going to go through this quickly, I promise. But for folks that are watching, everyone knows about NVIDIA's GPUs, and they hear B200, B100, or B200, H100, H200, but they don't fully. And then they hear about GB100, GB200, right, which is Grace Blackwell instead of just Blackwell. Grace is the CPU. So, contrary to what folks might believe, NVIDIA makes a very competitive CPU. It's a super chip. They call it a super chip. It's a bunch of ARM cores built on V2, Neoverse V2. It's got a high-speed mesh underneath it, high-speed interconnect through NVLink to tie CPUs and GPUs. Really state-of-the-art part, really geared toward high-performance computing. And I bring this up because, it started to dawn on me as I was writing more and more about, how wonderful this Grace super chip is. It started to dawn on me how relevant ARM has become in the data center.
Mm-hmm.
While, we just spent 15 minutes ago, spending a few minutes talking about how AMD has made such an impact on, the enterprise data center, it's easy to overlook how big of an impact ARM has had with Neoverse.
Mm-hmm.
At the cloud level, at the AI level, and eventually at the enterprise level. And while Intel and AMD are fighting it out for dominance in the data center, ARM is coming along. In their latest earnings, which were looked good, they reported that cloud and networking is now 10% of their revenue stream, which is significant. The fact that NVIDIA had the option of partnering with AMD, Intel, or ARM to build out that gray super chip, and they selected ARM because of the way they could customize the architecture for their specific needs. The fact that cloud providers can take the silicon and build their own chips, or this architecture and build their own chips. This all speaks to what I think, and it kind of goes somewhat to quantum, if you will. It speaks to, I think, where we're going as an industry from a silicon perspective, in that it's no longer an x86 world, just as it was no longer, a RISC world. And I say that with ARM, but back in the days of Unix, it was no longer a big iron world. We're going to a world where there are very specific workloads that are being stood up, and whether it's AI, some different types of HPC, crash simulation, weather modeling, so on and so forth, that have very specific needs. And we're getting to a place where you're going to be able to create your own silicon for your own workloads. And, I think quantum is more an indicator of the notion of this world where it's no longer kind of status quo, and the data center is no longer like just a data center. And I think ARM plays a very, very significant role in that, because it's what fuels all of this innovation at the low levels that allows you to have bespoke kind of workloads, yet universal kind of management and provision, and so on and so forth underneath. Really fun to watch. And I think we're just starting to see the beginning of ARM's influence on all of this.
Yeah, Matt, from my perspective, it just, what ARM is doing is, providing, the flexibility, to your point, to create these very tailored, support for workloads. And I'll give you an example. EdgeQ, they're a startup. They've been, around for a couple of years, but they're taking ARM and RISC, combining that to try to, their goal is to deliver a 5G base station on a chip. And if you think about that and how disruptive that could be to the traditional RAN infrastructure in, mobile network environments, from a power perspective, from a cost perspective, from an operational perspective, it's quite impressive. And it's been fun seeing Neoverse really get its legs and grow. I remember when it first launched. How long ago was that? It was like 3 or 4 years ago. Is that right?
2019, actually. Yeah.
2019. Wow. It's been longer. It's been almost 5 years. And to see where it's come, today is, it's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't say it. I won't name names, but there is one of the major cloud providers where ARM is 25% of its deployment, upward almost 25%. And there's another where it's creeping into the double digits. It is taking off, and what happens in the cloud eventually happens on-prem.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
What do you think about the challenges, and how much time is going to be required for full software parity with x86?
Paul, it's a good question. Here's what I have found, especially over the last couple of years. The issues around it used to be that ARM served very specific edge cases, right? I don't mean edge like edge computing. I mean edge within a data center, like very niche use cases. Maybe it was for some kind of CDN or caching, or and you always heard about these like unique use cases that were using ARM for server infrastructure. Linero came along, and the Linux project really kind of embraced ARM as a first class citizen. You saw the Linux distributions support ARM at the kernel level back in, was it 2017 or so that they did that? And you started to see those walls, those barriers come down. I'm not seeing, even Oracle is supporting with its database, is supporting ARM as an underlying architecture in a first class way, right? Not as a kind of make these modifications or expect these limitations kind of perspective. So I think they're coming down. And when I talk to folks in the enterprise, I don't hear about ARM as a challenge from a software support capability. It's more of we just don't know it yet, right? Because we've never deployed it before. But I don't hear about I can't run this, I can't run that, or the binaries need to be recompiled or anything like that. So I think that issue has largely been resolved. It's more of a enterprise IT becoming comfortable because they're so resistant to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My two cents. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. So listen, we kind of hit we had a kind of a rich discussion around a lot of topics, and we need to have like a new banner that has like the surprise segment. So, we started instituting these kind of like more fun discussion topics toward the end. Not more fun, but different discussion topics. And here's the question I have for you guys today. All right, so let me actually go to the 3-panel view. There we go. This is fun. So here's the question for today. So you have a dinner party, and this is something I think a lot of folks have kind of pondered before. And you can invite up to 3 guests, right? Living or dead, real or imaginary, because Will has a lot of imaginary friends. Who are those 3 people? Paul, let's start with you. Who are the up to 3? It could be just 1 if you want, but who are those 3?
Well, it would probably be Elon, Popeye.
Okay.
And Batman.
And who?
Batman.
And Batman. Oh, I love it. Are they all fictitious?
Will you please give a little? You got to explain that one, man.
Yeah.
Elon, I get. Popeye?
Hey, listen, anybody that eats spinach and becomes super strong, you can take some advice from a guy like that.
All right. And which Batman?
That's a good question.
In general. He's got to wear a cape. He's got to wear his mask. I don't know who it is.
Okay. All right. I like that.
I'm a Michael Keaton and Christian Bale Batman fan. All the rest.
I like Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Well, I like the original from the original Bruce Wayne there. I forget his name, but
Michael Keaton.
No.
Adam West from the TV series.
Adam West. Yeah.
Adam West.
He was awesome too. Yeah, he was great. I'll throw Adam West in there.
Yeah. All right. Well, who you got?
Okay, I'm going with movies because I'm a total movie nerd. So Indiana Jones, number 1.
Ooh, good.
Captain Jack Sparrow, and the Terminator.
And who?
The Terminator.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Do you want to give some kind of background on this? Those are good choices.
As a kid, I always dreamed about, going to, foreign lands with a bullwhip. And so Indiana Jones was sort of my idol. Captain Jack Sparrow, I have a lot of fun memories when my kids were growing up, going to those movies. I'm also a big classical music nerd, and I actually listen to classical movie soundtracks in my car. So I'm gonna share that little bit of tidbit. And then the Terminator is just brilliant. The first one was brilliant. T2 was brilliant. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is a pretty cool guy. I'd actually if I were to invite someone who was real, it would definitely be Arnold Schwarzenegger. But yeah, those are my 3 choices.
I love it. Okay. Wow. So you guys kept it light. I was going heavy with my thinking, kind of like Paul with his oatmeal story a couple of weeks ago. I was like, holy heck, how do you top that? So I was going to go with my mom who passed away, my dad's mom who obviously has passed away, and then my mom's dad. So my grandfather on my mother's side, my mother, and my dad's mom. And because they all came through 3 very rough kind of circumstances in their lives and prevailed and had a huge impact on me as a person. And but geez, now I'm like, maybe I need to do like Speed Racer and Kimba the Lion and some other cartoon figure.
Well, now I feel like shallow, with my choices.
I might throw Andre Segovia, on mine too.
Too late. You got to. Who are you going to drop? Batman?
No, I'll take 4.
Hey, I want to add. So I want to add a 4th. I want to add the Turkish silver medal winner in shooting.
Yes.
Have you been reading the stories about this guy? He just walks up in like sweatpants and a t-shirt, puts his hand in his pocket, doesn't use any paraphernalia.
Puts a cigarette out of his mouth.
Yeah, he's smoking a cigarette and wins the silver medal in the Olympics for Turkey. What a badass.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I know you guys have a lot of travel coming up. Will, you're going to be at Black Hat?
I'll be at Black Hat, maybe VMware at the end of the month. So, that's what I've got going.
Hey, Paul, you got any trips coming up? Or
toward the end of the year.
All right.
November, December.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm just going to be getting my kids off back to school, and I'll be hitting the road again. But August is nice because it allows us to reset a little bit, kind of retrench, and get ready for a super busy fall. Mm-hmm. Hey, guys, thank you for taking the time. This was a fun conversation. We're going to have to create that last section on our dinner guests as its own little vignette that we can share.
A super cut, as Pat calls it, right? Let's do a super cut on that one.
Yeah. But thanks for joining. Again, if you've been listening in, if you liked us, please like and follow and subscribe. Don't take anything we said as investment advice. If you do, you need therapy, not the physical kind. But thanks for joining in. We'll be back together next or in 2 weeks to do this all again. And I'm sure we're going to have another stimulating conversation. So, guys, thanks for a fun chat.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks, Matt, for hosting again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, see you.